Oh, and welcome to the live stream edition of the John Keim Report. I am joined by the voice of the Commanders, Bram Weinstein. We're going to get into a lot of your questions, your thoughts, concerns, remaining concerns. But let's get started with this, Bram. It sounds like you have playoff fever.
I do. I think it's possible, obviously. It's funny, look, there's one time in the history of the NFC East that the Eagles, Cowboys, and Washington all made the playoffs at the same time. Two of those teams feel locks is the wrong way to put it, but I got a hard time buying that Philadelphia is not making it, and I got a
Right.
harder time buying, that Dallas won't either right now after what they
Right.
did. So that leaves Washington, and these games in the next 3 weeks are huge because if they beat Atlanta, that kind of puts them behind the eight ball against them for what would be a final wild card spot. Then they get 2 games with the Giants, they'll have a chance to leapfrog them. So the next 3 weeks are boy, if you told me in the summer that these were going to be 3 enormous weeks, I never would have believed it, but they really are. And so, their destiny is in front of them. And I'm trying not to get too far ahead of it, but the idea of having Washington, Dallas, Philadelphia all in the playoffs together is like dream come true for me to see that happen.
Oh, could you imagine if that last game of the year comes down to a playoff spot? I think you're right about Dallas. It could be, though, that this team needs to win to make the playoffs with that last game. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Maybe, I mean, for as a reporter, for the fans, maybe it's a little bit more anxiety than they want. But think about that. It would be great to come down to that.
Yeah, it would be fun. I'm trying not to get too far ahead of myself, but it is hard not to get pumped up in the ride. And it was funny, like I watched Rivera do his press conference the other day after the game, and he's pulling out shoes and he's talking about the hugs and flowers he's getting at gas stations, and he's feeling a little bit of love, and he loosened up. He doesn't loosen up a lot, and he loosened up. And I think he's trying to enjoy the ride too, but there is a long way to go. They are just 6-5. They lose this weekend to Atlanta. It's going to be a problem, to end up in the playoffs. So this is a big game this weekend at FedEx Field. And I am really hoping that we're going to see, I think the energy has changed through the year. And I think based on what's happened, especially the last few weeks, I really feel like, that we're going to see, I hope a lot of people are home this weekend. There's a lot of momentum going. There's nothing not to like about Heinicke. I'm really hoping that the crowd shows out, and I assume we're not going to get a giant Falcons contingent here. So I'm really hoping we get a nice crowd this weekend.
I think that's what last week was very big for, because if they had gone to Philly and you win that game, you come back and you lay an egg against the Texans, then it's like, well, what did that win mean? Well, they went out and handled their business very well. And I think that's, to be honest, I think that's one of the reasons why Rivera was so excited or so in such a good mood yesterday, is because the way they handled their business during the week last week, and especially after the whole, the dancing and singing in the locker room. And I don't think that he was trying to be like, you shouldn't have done that. It's now like, okay, you've experienced this. Now you need to act like you have been there before, because now you've beaten a big team, a good team, and you've done something that others say you can do. Now you need to behave a certain way and handle your business. And during the week they did. And I think that that's what really, if you're a coach and you have a team that handles your business because of leaders you have, it really jacks you up. And I think that's what he was. Feeling yesterday. So,
The part of the leadership too, part that's really encouraging for me is the two people that they gave the most money to, who they drafted over the last 2 years, are the ones standing up in the locker room and standing up for the chemistry of the team and saying, we're not going to be punching bags. And there's John Allen, after they hold a team to 5 yards in the first half, saying, we didn't do enough today. So they are getting leadership from the people they need to get leadership from, and don't undersell that. There are a lot of players that are the highest paid players, heartbeat of the team, so-called leaders, that don't either command that in a locker room or don't do that at all. And they just let their talent, speak their piece for them. McLaurin and Allen are standing up and taking responsibility for all of this. And that to me is an extraordinarily encouraging thing about them too.
Absolutely. And as Blaine Bowling points out here, focus and discipline wins games in a tight NFC race. And because there's so much parity in this league, that look at the things that decide games. And to me, a big part of this streak, there's so much focus on Taylor Heinicke, and that's fine. It's a quarterback position. We all get that. But the special teams have been really good. They're not turning the ball over. They're causing takeaways, and they're not committing as many penalties. All those things add up. And I do think it's a big reason. They're not, they're not starting in 2nd and 20 like they were a lot too often against good teams earlier in the year. That stuff adds up. That matters. And so I think that does come back to focus and discipline. And it's funny because I did ask Rivera about that the other day, and he's like, listen, that's how his teams have always been. But early in the year, it's not how they were. And it did cost him in some key moments. So that's the thing, Brandon. I was going to ask you, and I joked about the playoff fever to start because Bram's playing hurt tonight, not feeling well. So kudos to him, little hat tip. So that's why I joked about playoff fever. But I do wonder, is it safe to believe in this team?
Yeah, I mean, I think safe to believe that the building blocks have turned a corner in a way that's really positive. Safe to believe they're going to get to the postseason? No, I don't believe that yet. I am hopeful, and I see what I feel like are the makings of the intangibles that look like a playoff team. And I'm hoping they get there. But, as you know, things change. It's a long season. And, the reality is, like, last year at this time, they were heading towards this way as well. And then they had a terrible thing happen to their team, and it kind of blew up their chances. So you don't know week to week what's going to happen. And so I don't want to get ahead of myself. And they got to play the games. Frankly, like, Atlanta looked like they were going to be a really bad team to start the season, and they aren't. And I'm not going to talk a lot about them because I haven't really watched them, but they're competitive every single week that they play, and they do have playmakers. And then they're going to play the Giants, who I think might be the surprise of the NFL with the record that they have. And the record that they have is the record that they have. So I'm not going to dismiss it. So I really think, these next 3 weeks are going to be really, really, really interesting for them, and see if they can get through with at least 2 wins. And then we could start really talking about, with 3 and 4 at home to end the season, a run to try to get to the playoffs. The unfortunate part for them is obviously what Philadelphia has done so far. They've got too much in the bank. Like, there's no catching them for the division. So the route here is just a wild card, which means they got to leapfrog at least one of these 2 teams. It feels like the most likely one is the Giants, but we'll see.
Well, and then you're also throwing in there San Francisco or Seattle. One of those teams is going to win the NFC West.
Yeah.
Who is the other team that, if San Francisco wins it, can they pass Seattle? I think Seattle's schedule, they have 2 more games against the Rams. The Rams are not playing well. They're what, 3-7, I think. So, and they have the Vegas, I think, this week. So that one might be a tough one, but we'll see. But I think so. Those are the other 2 teams in this equation. Again, one of those will win it. So there's really a couple teams that are really, I think, fighting for that spot. If Washington,
don't discount Detroit. They beat Washington and the Giants.
True.
Don't discount Detroit. Like, in the way that you said, like, we didn't think the Rams would be like, let's go look at their schedule down the stretch. Like, there looks to be like winnable games again for them. And that loss to them in week 2 could come back to really haunt them or the Giants, honestly, at the end of the year.
Yeah. That's a good point. Who would have thought that one?
Right.
Right. But why do you think it has turned so well?
I think Rivera read the room because he had to, that they are energized by what Heinicke brings. I don't need to, I'm not going to toot my own horn here. I've loved this guy from day one. I think he's a gamer. I think he's a player. I don't think you can quantify what he does on the field. He obviously knows this offense really, really, really well. And he obviously is someone that is humble in the locker room and knows his role. And his role has been to lead when they need him. He, again, last week, I know they talked about all this stuff that was left on the field, and I agree, like in the red zone, but he made 3 or 4 unbelievable throws again. Twice with people literally in his face, dimes on the spot to McLaurin, Logan Thomas. He knows where the ball needs to go. He's not making a ton of mistakes. And I think he just kind of owns the energy of the locker room. And then secondarily, look, their defensive line is ridiculously good right now. Their defensive line embarrassed Houston's offensive line. This is the NFL. I know that that team is struggling, but this is the NFL. That guy that John Allen bulldozed was the first guard taken and was a first-round pick. Like, Laramie Tunsil is a Pro Bowl tackle. They ran by him a million times. Montez Sweat could have had 3 sacks. Like, they are playing at the level we had all hoped, when they drafted them in this order. And that, to me, is the main reason. I think Derek Force called them, I got 4 lions in front of me. It sounds about right. Every play looks like it might get blown up. It's truly amazing.
And I'm gonna play off that one too. And by the way, I did have Logan Paulson on the podcast earlier today. That video will be out on YouTube tomorrow morning, but we did talk a lot about some of those plays you're talking about with Heinicke and why he's making those plays because of familiarity with the players and the system. And that stuff makes a difference because a couple of those he was hit right away, but the ball's out because of that. But I want to go back to the D line because I really like how the coverage has been playing. And the other day, some of those sacks, when you're running some of those stunts, and two of those Sweat sacks were off stunts, and one was because he chased down Mills, and it just really good pursuit by Sweat and stick-to-itiveness, if that's a word. So you go back to the coverage, and I really like what they're doing there. They're playing, you're seeing different coverages, mixing it up, because these guys understand what they're supposed to be doing. And that was something that where I think William Jackson absolutely held them back. But now you're seeing it with the corners, like they're playing, too high, man under coverage. They understand where they need to be underneath the receiver. You got your help behind you. But the other thing they've been doing, Bram, like all those free safety looks, and I'm going to get to, someone asked this question, so I'm going to get to this right now. The three safety looks and McCain down the slot. But the other thing they've been adding in the last two games are the four safety looks. So you get Percy Butler and Derek Forrest back there. You're moving Cam Curl up in a linebacker role, and you McCain in the slot. And it just, they have so much versatility that they're tapping into it. And when Greg Williams was the defensive coordinator, one thing I loved about what he did is he would maximize the talent he had on the roster. I think they're doing that with this team. Now, Superstar 0927 asked me, any insight on how the defensive staff decided on using McCain as a slot corner? Any reasons it took so long? Yeah, I mean, you can't just do it. You have to have guys who can then play safety. If Derek Forrest isn't ascending, you can't play that. And then early in the year, Cam Curl wasn't on the field. And then I think they certainly tried. Then they also had St. Juice was playing the slot because he had Jackson and Fuller on the outside. So there wasn't the need came and they filled it like this, but it was because Forrest ascended. Curl was healthy. Then Jackson gets hurt, and you see what St. Juice is doing on the outside, and that's how it goes. Or that's how it led to them using McCain there. But I love what McCain has done. Now, there was one play that he gave up the other day, I think on a third down. He gave him an 11-yard catch. It looked like he was going for the ball. He could have gone for the man, could have got the stop. All right, and he missed the tackle. By and large, that guy gets up there and sticks his nose in there. And Logan and I talked about one play where he take it on the lead back. He's a small guy, but he plays physical and he plays quick. And I think I love watching their coverages, Bram, because they do some different things. They do some different things with Cam Curl chasing down the middle, almost like in a Tampa 2, where a linebacker would be in that role. Now it's Cam Curl. The speed helps. So there's just a lot of things that then helps the coverage. So it's working hand in hand. That's my long rant there. Sorry.
This guy, why isn't Heinicke a team captain? I'll ask I think we're a little too soon for that one. St. Juice going to be a good cornerback.
He is a good cornerback.
He already is. I think if they were not thin at the position, I think he would have been starting on the outside earlier this season. So yeah. He already is. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I agree with you on all of that. And, the other part of it too, Bram, is when you look at like the run game and all that, and I think there's still a lot of room for improvement there. Yeah. But I like the versatility that they offer with like a guy like Curtis Samuel. And we're seeing we've seen what he can do and what they missed in not having him last year.
So there's a number of things here, and I think this is where I think Heinicke has an advantage over Wentz. Two reasons why I think he has an advantage in general. Three. The locker room loves him. All right, it's not an indictment of Wentz, but like it's read the room. Like you can't pull him out right now, and not when they're winning specifically too. Two other things. I actually think the offensive line's been better in recent weeks, and I want to point out a couple people specifically. Trey Turner has been very good since he got inserted back in as the right guard. He's had a couple of really good weeks. Cornelius Lucas and Sam Cosmi have been rotating. I'm not even totally sure what that's about, but both of them have been better than they were early in the season. And while I'm not pretending that their offensive line is a strength, it doesn't appear as vulnerable as it was in the past. But because there are vulnerabilities there, I think Heinicke's motion forces teams to reconsider how much heat they're going to bring. They're not going to do it with Wentz. They're not going to be afraid of him escaping out of the pocket. And I landed on this a few weeks ago, that their line, just frankly to me, isn't necessarily good enough to have a quarterback who has mobility problems. And the third major thing that I think is a really big deal is, and listen, I know Rivera got a lot of crap for this because of the way he said it when he said, what's the difference early in the season between the Giants, Cowboys, and the Eagles? And he said quarterback. And what he meant was a guy in the system longer. Guess who's been in the system longer? Guess who's right. So like, go watch these big plays that he's making. Like it's because he knows where he wants to go with the ball. He's not afraid to stay in the pocket and take hits. I wish he would take less of them because he's not that big of a guy. He took one in the red zone the other day that I thought was totally unnecessary and was on him. And I want him to try to avoid some of that stuff. But he knows where the ball needs to go, and that's a sign of understanding the offense. So this consistently goes back for me to stop talking about what he's not. Go look at what he is. The guy's a winner. He understands what's going on right now. The team really likes him. He doesn't need to be a captain. He is a heartbeat of this team. And frankly, it was funny. I was like, because you were talking about playoffs earlier, I looked up, like, through the years, the championship teams, look, like, not that I think they're going to win the Super Bowl, but Joe Theismann was a punt returner.
What's your temperature, Bram?
Joe Theismann was a punt returner in 1974 and didn't become a starting quarterback until 1978. And Mark Rippon was a 6th-round pick who hurt his knee and back and did not play in the NFL for 2 years, and then eventually became a backup to an aging Doug Williams, and then eventually became a starting quarterback, and nobody thought that he's going to be this, that, or the other thing. So I'm done putting anything past this guy. I don't care if it's pretty looking to you. It is to me, and I know he's coming through when he needs to come through. And isn't that all you want? The guy's winning, and he's coming through in clutch moment after clutch moment after clutch moment, and I love the ride with him.
Well, listen, and it's funny because that's what Rivera said after the game when we asked him, like, why? And he's like, winning. I mean, it was a very Charlie Sheen-like comment, but it's true. Like, they are winning. And there's sometimes, and even John Allen said when, John Allen loves to quote Nick Saban, and I don't blame him. I mean, Nick Saban kind of has a record of success. But one of the things he said is that Saban would always tell them the quarterback or the team chooses the quarterback. And it's really, how do you respond to a guy? And then he kind of said, you really can't explain it. It just is what it is. And I think that kind of sums up Heinicke. You can't always explain it. And, again, we don't need to get into flaws. I mean, we know. So, but the team responds and they are winning. And one of the things that you can't underestimate, and this is why I still see people saying they want to see Sam Howell. Like, what you want to see is a team that's winning. Like,
why are you worried about next year right now?
Well,
that goes to the conversation of what's going to happen with Wentz. I don't care.
It's a ridiculous angle to take. But
they'll deal with the Wentz contract when they get there. Like, they have a lot of options with it. Stop worrying about it right now.
Well,
who cares?
But I also think, like, it's all, well, he's got this wrong. You have to appreciate what goes into playing that position. And if you're telling me that you think Sam Howell is better right now, you're telling me that you don't understand the nuances of that. And it can't just, well, you don't know. Well, they do. And part of it, and I go back to Heinicke with this, is that he understands this offense very well. And he understands where he needs to go and when. His footwork matches up with the routes. You can see it. And so that stuff all matters. The operation, getting in and out of the huddle, all that stuff makes a difference. And so to expect someone else to go out there and do better, but that's one of the things that he really adds.
Yeah. Look at this guy, OG DMV says, more than half the league doesn't have an elite quarterback. Try 2/3.
Oh, I think it's more than two.
A franchise quarterback is just the guy starting a quarterback, nothing more, nothing less. TH is the guy until he's unsat. I totally agree with this. And I want to point out what's going on in the NFC right now. And I do think this is a very unusual year and something's up with a lot of these teams. But Kyler Murray, who just got all this money, his team is underwater. Matthew Stafford and the Rams offense is completely broken and they are completely underwater. I don't know what's going on with Green Bay either, but Aaron Rodgers is completely broken. I think we all understand that Brady's situation is very complicated and he may be there in the end anyway, but still they're not clicking like they had in the past. Here's what the playoffs look like right now. Jalen Hurts, who a year ago, people were wondering, can he be the guy? Dak Prescott, who's a mid-round pick, who's been, dealing with, is he elite forever? Taylor Heinicke, potentially. Daniel Jones right now would be in the playoffs right now. And they didn't pick up his 5th-year option and they're wondering what his future may be. On the outside looking in and right on the outside looking in are the two teams we're playing next week, Daniel Jones and Marcus Mariota. Okay. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo is the quarterback of the team that's probably going to win the NFC West. And if he doesn't, it's Geno Smith. You know what? Like, stop it. Look around the league right now. Are any of those people what you would call elite quarterbacks? They're not. So, like, I'm done talking about what he's not. I see what he is, and this is why I'm on this guy's side and have been for a very, very, very long time.
Yeah, and someone else asked up here about, and it's funny, this is going back to the game just a little bit, but I saw it, and he's like, why were they so pass heavy? Where was that question? Asked about why were they so pass heavy early in the game? Well, they weren't, because 3 of the first 6 plays were runs, but where the difference came in that the first scoring drive they had, it all started with play action off that, and it's funny because I think I even tweeted they need to go to play action on first down. They went to play action first down. It was the big pass to McLaurin. So, but they're not going to ever be a pass heavy team with Heinicke, but they can be that way because I think he understands what he is. There are a couple of throws that he didn't make early in that game where Dotson is breaking open on one. I'm like, you got to throw that. Logan Thomas on another, doesn't do it. But what I also wonder too is, did he see something or not see something that prevented him from throwing? It's like, if that's the case, then okay, you didn't force something, right? Even though they were open, I don't know what he was seeing. But there were a couple of other times, Bram, that he did a good job just throwing the ball away and getting rid of the ball. And I think those are big deals too.
Yeah. 2 other things I want to point out from the game the other day real quickly. I love the way Brian Robinson ran the ball. He is not, I mean, granted, that's a bad rush defense. I thought they would be able to control the line of scrimmage again. But Robinson had one of the best 4-yard runs I think I've ever seen. He gets forward yardage every single time. He breaks a ton of tackles. He is not 100%. He told Julie this, and she talked about it on the broadcast over the weekend, that he is not 100%. But I loved the way he ran. There was a ferocity to the way he ran. I loved it. And the other person I want to point out, and I've seen this for a couple of weeks, is Logan Thomas looks like himself again. Physically,
that's a big key.
Totally looks like himself again. Like, he could have had a couple of big plays in the Eagles game. They just didn't connect. He was the leading receiver this week. He made an incredible catch on the sideline. This is someone they're going to rely upon. And now seeing him block the last couple of weeks, I feel like we are, looking at, these guys, it takes a long time to recover from the injuries he had. He worked his tush off to get out there for week 1. That was probably a little too soon. He re-injured himself. It took him time to get back up to speed. And this is the good news. Like, he looks like himself from a couple of years ago again. That is a really big deal to me. Like, I say the same thing about, like, I always say this on my radio show all the time. I say, it's not who you play, it's when you play them.
Correct.
Like, this game on Sunday, Washington was set up the way they were going, the way their defense was going. I knew that was a possibility, that's how it was going to turn out, because it was just primed and ready, a great matchup. I also knew, having watched Philadelphia on Monday night, that they were going to struggle to score. Like, A.J. Brown got hurt in that Monday night game. He is not the same right now. Dallas Goedert got hurt. He is out for a month. Devontae Smith has a knee. Their best player on offense is Jason Kelce, and he's beat up. Like, there's going to be a few weeks here. I think they have too much money in the bank. There's going to be a few weeks here where they don't score a lot and people are going to start questioning them. Oh, what's going on with them? Why are they broken? Well, they don't have their guys. Our guys are getting healthier again.
Right.
Trey Turner looks good again. Hopefully Cosme's feeling good really, really soon. Robinson's looking better and better. Logan Thomas looked like himself again. And I think this team largely has been pretty fortunate on injuries, with a few notable exceptions.
And I want to go back to Trey Turner, because you're right. He's been much better lately. They still need to improve that interior of the line. But I also, Bram, going back to Cosme, his run blocking has been really good. Go back and watch. There was a run that Antonio Gibson had in the red zone where there were 3 tight ends set. Tight ends pull, come down, and really good blocking. And then Cosme blocks down. Then he goes and finds a linebacker. Then he goes and drives. Gibson has this nice cut, good vision, gets in there, and then Cosme comes flying and knocks him even further. So it's just like he adds something. But the whole thing with him is his hand is still recovering. It's still not 100. It's still like, I don't think he still has, I don't think it's still 100%. I think when that happens, you have to put him out there full time, but they're going to use him that now. And their run game is better when he's in there. Cornelius Lucas has done a good job, but Cosme's strength is that run blocking. And I like the pairing of he and Turner in that situation. So as Cosme, Tom Vaccaro wants to know, as Cosme gets back to full strength, do you think the screen game will get back into the game plan more? Maybe, but I think the hard part with those screens, what I like with their screen game is the tight end screens, because it's not as dependent on that's a little bit more fooling the eyes even more. And sometimes the other ones, I don't like their guards in space. So even if Cosme's out there, I don't like their guards in space. So I think that makes it tougher. But I think the tight end screen will be something. Greg Dasher wants to know 4-2 or 5-1 is not impossible the way their defense is playing. What do you think? 4-2 to me, I think that's possible. Listen, I would say this. Someone else, L33 reacts, says, need to focus on Atlanta and then worry about the Giants. LOL. This would be a good game. And he's 1,000% right. Atlanta plays games close. I have, for my Keys and Predictions podcast over the weekend, Michael Rothstein, our Falcons reporter, on. He'll fill you in on the Falcons, get some intel on them, but they do play close games. However, the way this defense is playing, I could see. Here's the scenario, Bram. You beat the Falcons, you split with the Giants, you got the Browns, then you got to split with the Cowboys, and then like we don't know. Like the Cowboys might be resting their starters at the end.
You
of
don't
the
know.
year.
Yeah,
So,
you don't know.
And,
I mean, like, well, think about this though for a second. I mean, like, I always feel like this team gets just rooked on scheduling all the time. But like in this particular case coming up, they're going to play the Giants in New York. Then they're going to bye week, and then they're going to play the Giants again. But the Giants don't have a bye week.
Right.
Hello. Like, not only do they get a week off, they don't have to even prepare for a new team. Like, that should be a break at home, I would hope. But again, like to your point, this is the way I feel about it. It's a week-to-week thing. You don't know what the injuries are. You don't know what kind of health they're going to be in. So let's see.
Well, and it's funny, Bram, because you know who brought that up to me today? My wife on our walk this morning with our dog. She's like, well, that's an advantage for them because the Giants, So people, I think, are starting to get excited. But again, Sunday, you got to win that game at home. And I think people get excited. Nathaniel Roberts wants to know, with Payne playing so well, do you think they will resign him? Well, listen, the reason they didn't trade him is because they still want to take a shot at re-signing him. So, and we've talked about this before, a little bit of that will depend on what happens with Wentz, because if Wentz isn't here, it opens up a lot of cap room, depending what they do at quarterback. You still have to re-sign Heinicke. He's not going to be this expensive guy to sign. So I think some of that depends. I know they want to try and keep him. Ron Rivera does a weekly show with NBC Sports Washington and JP Finley or NBC, and he brought that up with them on what's today, Tuesday, maybe yesterday, and he said that they want to make running, but I already knew that. I know that's why they didn't trade him. So I do think they see the value in that. So it's going to buckle your seatbelts on that one. I don't know what's going to happen. I think if they gave him John Allen money, he probably would do it, and I think they were reluctant to do that before, but it's like the contract is going to be almost 2 years old.
Yeah.
So I think there's a definite path to keeping him. They see the value of that. And then you get guys like next year, if you keep him young, healthy, Montez Sweat, you got, John Ridgway, Mr. WWE, and then you got Mathis coming back. You still have a strong line. So
yeah, they're going to have to deal with Cole Holcomb as well. He's going to be a free agent. And they are going to be, and here's the one I want them to get ahead of. Cam Curl has another year left on his contract. Put money in front of him now. It's crazy not to just get him done. Get him done. Yeah. He's one of the best safeties in the NFL. Get him done.
He is. I think he's a big key to what they do back there because his, again, versatility. You see him playing deep. You see him playing up. You see him covering receiver. I love watching him. There was a play in the red zone that he made the other day, and it's simply because he's in the right spot. His eyes don't get fooled that much, but it was going to be a little throwback, little boot action, throwback to the tight end, but Curl doesn't bite on the action, is sitting there, the tight end's there, and Davis Mills has to throw it away. You see that stuff with him all the time. It's not a huge play in the stat sheet, but it's forced because you're in the right spot at the right time. So, All right, Bram, well, we're going to close it up here. We got 2 more minutes. You got some final thoughts for tonight? And
I really, everybody's going to be home this weekend, spending time with their families, I hope. Come to the stadium, support this team. Like, the energy has been largely pretty good, but you all know what the situation has been with opposing fans coming in. I don't think that's necessary here. And if you're not on with the momentum of this team right now, you're missing out. Like, this is a fun ride. So I'm really hoping that I see FedEx Field in a way I haven't seen in a little while, and get part of this. And then outside of that, like, happy Thanksgiving. I hope everybody has an awesome holiday this week, and I look forward to the game on Sunday.
And happy Thanksgiving takes on a different meaning this time. But By the way, someone said, is John Allen playing at all pro level? Yes, he is. I think
Yes.
Deron Payne is pretty damn close as well. And
I think John Allen is the best player
sure,
at his position this year.
I agree. And one of the things that I really like, I want to point this out, is because there was so much focus on those two guys, the beef in the Dallas game and all that. And then you see during the game, they're doing these handshake celebrations and all that. There is a chemistry there. They're not necessarily super, super tight, but they played together for so long. There's a chemistry that exists there. And I think that stuff is good to see, but he is playing at a high level. And then Greg says Sapp and Coach Z got the D-line humming. Sapp was only here for a short time. This is Scanina, and this is Ryan Kerrigan too. I think that makes a difference, but I do think that coaching change has helped that defensive line. Anyway, my last thought is the same as you, Bram. I think this one thing that I was impressed with last week is the way they came out and just completely dominated Houston in that first half. And it was the exact right approach. If they continue to take that approach, then they're going to be in good shape. So, and I think it starts Sunday. But again, I think, and I'm sure you talk to people too, you talk to a lot of fans too, on the plane, in the hotels or whatever, that people just want to be excited again about this team. Winning at Sunday at home, I think we're going to see one of the better atmospheres that we've seen in a while, because I think people are starting to say, maybe, just maybe, you can kind of attach yourself to them.
This is a big deal
this year. Yeah.
You lose this game, you're kind of playing behind the 8 ball against Atlanta as a wild card team.
Absolutely.
Atlanta, they oddly have a shot at their division because of what's going on with the Buccaneers. We don't have that luxury. So it's a really, really, really big deal this weekend, and I'm really looking forward to it. And they are explosive. And the only thing I could say at this point about them is, if we give Cordero Patterson a kick return, we have made a big mistake.
Well, see, but it goes, yes. And it goes, yeah, you're 1,000% right. But this goes back, their coverage has been really good. But yes, kick it the hell out of the end zone. Right. And I think you'll be okay. But lots to discuss about that the rest of the week. I'll have the keys and predictions on Saturday morning. I think it is Friday, Saturday morning, whatever it is. Logan Paulson's on the podcast. It was up today. The video will be up on YouTube on Wednesday morning. Check out Between the Hashes. It's my son's weekly look at the big college football games of the week. That'll be out Wednesday. A lot of good stuff out there, Bram. And it's fun to be talking about something that is on the field when we're in late November. And hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Bram for playing hurt. Again, I'll be back. I think it's on Friday, maybe, with keys and predictions. So I will talk to you next time.